Men, let me tell you something raw and real from the very start. A woman doesn't need hours, days, or weeks to decide if you're the kind of man she wants in her world. That decision happens in seconds. Yes, you heard me right. Seconds. It's instant, instinctive, and it's written all over her body before she even utters a single word. The problem is, most men are blind to it. They're too busy talking, too busy performing, or too busy trying to impress to notice the truth standing right in front of them. Now, here's the harsh reality. If you miss these signals, if you ignore what she's quietly screaming through her body language, her tone, her energy, you'll end up chasing a woman who has already filed you unforgettable. She won't tell you directly because women rarely do. Instead, she'll let you exhaust yourself while she invests her attention somewhere else. But here's the beauty of this truth. Once you learn to catch these signals, once you train yourself to see what 99% of men overlook, you unlock a new kind of power. You stop wasting your time, your energy, and your focus on women who don't respect you. You reclaim your position as the prize, the man who chooses, not the man who begs to be chosen. And by the end of this video, you're going to know the 5 instant signs of disinterest, the ones women can't hide even if they tried. More importantly, I'm going to show you how to flip every single one of those signs back into your power. This isn't about manipulating her, it's about re-entering yourself as the man who doesn't settle for crumbs, the man who demands respect without saying a word. Now, let me be crystal clear. Society loves to sell you this idea that women are unpredictable, mysterious, impossible to understand. That's a lie. Women are not unpredictable. They're actually highly predictable if you know what to look for. Their psychology is ancient. It's rooted in survival instincts that haven't changed for thousands of years. One of the most famous studies in communication done by psychologist Albert Mehrabian revealed that up to 93% of emotional meaning doesn't come from the words themselves. It comes from tone, facial expression, and body language. That means a woman doesn't need to tell you, "I'm not interested." Her body already delivered the message long before her mouth did. The question is, are you awake enough to notice, or are you too busy ignoring reality because you're desperate for her approval? Let me give you a picture. Imagine you're talking to a woman at a cafe. You're excited, you're sharing a story, but she keeps glancing at her phone. She laughs politely, but her eyes are everywhere but you. Or picture texting. You send her a thoughtful message and she leaves you on read only to post a meme or a picture on her story. 5 minutes later, she's not too busy for life. She's too busy for you. And men who fail to notice this keep throwing their energy into a black hole. But here is where the shift happens. The rare man. The man who catches these micro-signals and immediately pulls his energy back, creates what I call a power vacuum. And nature hates a vacuum. The second you stop chasing, the second you stop performing, something flips in her psychology. Suddenly, you're not the predictable guy begging for her crumbs. You're the uncommon man who walked away. And women notice uncommon men. That's the frame we're going to step into today. Because I'm not here to teach you how to chase harder. I'm here to teach you how to see clearer when you see the truth. You win back your time, your focus, and your pace. And in this world, a man's peace is priceless. So, buckle up because we're about to break down the 5 instant signs of disinterest that women reveal without saying a word. And more importantly, I'll show you how to flip each of these signs so that you're no longer at the mercy of her moods, but instead, standing strong in your own frame. But before we dive in, let me say this. If you're tired of being the man who chases women who don't value him, if you're ready to step into the role of the man who leads, the man who draws women into his orbit without begging for attention, then you'll want to check out my book, Attraction Secrets. It's the complete blueprint to flipping the script, making women pursue your presence instead of you chasing their approval. You'll find the link in the description. Now let's get into it. The first sign of disinterest is one you can't afford to miss. And it starts with the eyes because the eyes never lie. Sign number 1, her eyes scan for exit men. Let's start with the window to the soul, the eyes. If you learn only one thing from this video, let it be this. The eyes never lie. You can fake words. You can fake tone for a little while, but the eyes always expose the truth when a woman is interested. Her eyes linger. She doesn't just glance at you. She looks at you as if you are the most captivating man in the room. Her pupils dilate ever so slightly. Her gaze softens, and there's a spark, a shimmer that makes it impossible to mistake she's present with you. Even if someone else walks into the room, her attention doesn't waver because in that moment, You are the center of her focus. But when she's not interested, the story changes instantly. Her eyes become restless, scanning her surroundings, searching for something or someone else to anchor her attention. She may glance past your shoulder, toward the door, at the bartender, at her phone. These little behaviors, called microsignals, are her subconscious way of saying, "I'm not invested here. Think about it." Thousands of years ago in tribal times, women constantly scanned their environment for threats. Their survival depended on it. That ancient wiring still runs through her today. But instead of scanning for predators, she's scanning for value, scanning for the man who can command her attention, who radiates strength, presence, and status. If her eyes are darting, if she's restless, she's signaling that she doesn't feel that spark with you. Let me paint a few scenarios so this hits home. Imagine you're at a bar. You're telling her a story, but every time someone new walks in, her eyes flick toward the entrance. You may think she's just distracted, but she's not. What she's really doing is evaluating every new arrival against you. And if her gaze keeps drifting, that's your signal. Her interest is already slipping. Or picture this. You're at a coffee shop. You lean in to tell her something meaningful, and halfway through, she picks up her phone, glances at a notification, maybe even starts scrolling. Do you think she would ever do that with a man who completely captivated her attention? Absolutely not. That's her way of telling you without words that mentally she's somewhere else. And here's the digital version. You send her a thoughtful message, maybe even a flirty one. She doesn't reply. Hours later, you see her story pop up. She had time to post. She had energy to share with the world, but she didn't have energy for you. That's not business. That's disinterest disguised as business. Now most men ignore this. They keep pushing forward, keep performing, keep chasing. They think maybe if I try harder, she'll finally see me. But the more you chase when her eyes are scanning elsewhere, the more invisible you become. This is where you need to flip the script. When you catch her eyes wandering, when you notice her checking out mentally, the worst thing you can do is double down. The best thing you can do is pull your energy back. Here's why. When you stop performing, you create what psychologists call a power vacuum. A woman expects most men to chase harder when she withdraws. That's the predictable male behavior she's seen 1,000 times. But when you don't, when you calmly lean back, when you stop fighting for her attention, you shock her system. Suddenly, she's confronted with a rare man. A man who values his time enough not to fight for scraps. And nature hates a vacuum. When you pull back, she feels the absence. She notices the silence. That's when curiosity creeps in. That's when she wonders, why isn't he chasing? Why isn't he desperate like the others did? I just misjudged his value. That's the loop you want to trigger. The power vacuum loop. The man who doesn't scramble for her attention becomes the man she scrambles to keep. Let me give you a clear example. Picture two men talking to the same woman at a party. The first man notices her eyes scanning the room, and instead of pulling back, he leans harder. He raises his voice, tries another joke, keeps filling the silence. She smiles politely, but her eyes keep drifting, and eventually she excuses herself to the bathroom and never comes back. The second man, on the other hand, notices her eyes drifting. He simply pauses, smiles, and casually shifts his attention elsewhere. He starts a light conversation with the guy next to him or takes a sip of his drink without saying a word. Guess who suddenly feels the tension? She does, because instead of being chased, now she's the one facing the possibility of losing his focus. That's the difference. That's why recognizing this first sign is crucial, because it tells you whether to lean in or to step back. And trust me, 9 times out of 10, stepping back is exactly what flips the power dynamics sign. Number 2, her voice flatters men. If the eyes never lie, then the voice never hides. A woman's voice is like a direct broadcast of her emotions. Even before she can think about controlling her words, her tone betrays exactly how she feels in that moment. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, her voice dances. It has melody, rhythm, life. She speeds up when she's excited. She slows down when she wants you to lean in, and her tone rises and falls like waves. There's warmth, there's curiosity, there's an undeniable sparkle. You can feel it, not just hear it, but when she isn't interested, her voice becomes flat, monotone, empty. It's stripped of all energy, as if every word is coming out because she has no other choice. No rhythm, no inflection, no warmth, just cold, mechanical responses that drag the air out of the conversation. And here's the fascinating part, it's not random. Neurological studies have shown that dopamine, the brain chemical connected to excitement, pleasure, and desire, literally changes vocal pitch. When she's excited, her tone naturally rises. When she's bored or indifferent, her pitch drops, her pace slows, and her words shrink. You don't need a lab test to detect it. You just need to listen. Let's make it real with a few examples. You're on a date. You ask her, "So, how was your week?" If she's into you, her answer bursts with energy. "Oh my God, it was crazy. Let me tell you what happened." She leans in. She adds details. She carries you into her story. That's an invested voice. But if she's not interested, the same question gets you, "It was fine." Flat, short, no details. Her tone is so lifeless that it practically pushes you away. She didn't answer because she wanted to connect. She answered because she felt obligated to, or imagined she's on the phone with her girlfriends. Her voice is alive, expressive, filled with laughter. Then she turns to you and suddenly it's dull, clipped, almost forced. That's not stress. That's not exhaustion. That's lack of interest. Because trust me, women don't lose their ability to sound alive when they're with someone who excites them. And don't think this only applies to real-life conversations. It happens in texting too. A woman who's interested puts energy into her messages. She uses emojis, exclamation marks, stretched out words like, "so funny," or "yes." She mirrors the energy she feels, but when she's not interested, her texts shrink to the bare minimum, "okay, lol." One-word answers stripped of any flavor. If her messages feel like they could have been written by a robot, it's because emotionally she's detached. Now here's the trap most men fall into. They sense her flatness, but instead of recognizing it for what it is, they overcompensate. They raise their own energy. They push harder. They become the clown trying to wake her up. But that only makes things worse. The more you overperform, the more she checks out because now she sees you as needy, desperate to win her attention back. So, how do you flip this? You don't reward flat energy. You don't chase harder. You don't bend over backward to force her excitement. Instead, you mirror her. If her tone drops, yours stays calm, steady, relaxed. If her messages shrink, you don't triple the length of yours to compensate. You let your reply match her level. This is what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. When something unpredictable happens, the human brain gets hooked. If you always chase when she's flat, she learns she can give you nothing and still keep you around. But when you don't feed into it, when you refuse to perform in exchange for dull energy, she suddenly feels the gap. She starts wondering, why isn't he reacting like the others? Why isn't he trying harder to win me? That curiosity is what pulls her back in. Let me give you an example. Picture a man asking a woman out. She replies with flat energy. "Maybe I'll see." The average guy immediately tries again. He offers more options, more dates, more effort, thinking persistence will win her over. But what happens? She loses even more respect because she sees him fighting for scraps of her interest. Now picture a different man. She replies, "Maybe I'll see." He smiles, doesn't argue, and simply says, "Cool. Let me know." Then he goes on with his life. He doesn't push. He doesn't beg. He doesn't fight to prove his worth. Guess which man suddenly gets her attention? The one who didn't reward her flatness. The one who showed he's not dependent on her response sign. Number 3, her tone exposes rank men. Let me tell you something powerful. A woman's tone of voice doesn't just communicate emotion, it communicates rank. Her tone tells you exactly where she places you in her hierarchy of respect. And once you start listening, you'll never miss it again. Here's the truth. When she's genuinely interested, her tone is warm, curious, even playful. She leans into the conversation. She asks questions with softness, with an openness that tells you she values the exchange. Her words may be ordinary, but her tone carries respect. But when she's not interested, when she sees you as someone she doesn't have to value, her tone shifts. It becomes dismissive, clipped, or even sharp. She cuts you off mid-sentence, sighs between replies, shortens her words like she's doing you a favor just by answering this. Instinct is ancient in tribal societies. Tone wasn't just about communication, it was about inclusion or exclusion. A warm tone signaled acceptance, belonging, safety within the group. A cold or clipped tone that was a signal that you were being pushed out, excluded, stripped of rank. And guess what? That same mechanism still plays out in modern dating. Let's make it real. Imagine you're telling her a story in person. You're halfway through and she cuts in with a flat, "Yeah, I get it." Her words may not be harsh, but her tone is dripping with dismissal. She just told you without saying it outright, "You're beneath my attention," or picture a group setting. You're both at a dinner with friends. She laughs warmly with another guy at the table, her voice filled with energy and charm. Then she turns to you, and her replies shrink to one word, answers delivered with a dull tone. That contrast is all you need to know. She's showing you the ranking system in her mind. It even shows up in texting. At first she might send, "Yes, that sounds fun." Drawn-out words, playful tone, even through text. Then weeks later, the same kind of message becomes, "Okay." Just 2 letters. That's tone stripped down into writing. Don't overlook it. She's signaling a drop in respect. Now, here's what most men do wrong. They hear that clipped tone, they feel the dismissal, and they accept it. They laugh it off. They act like it doesn't matter. Or worse, they try harder to please her so she'll like them again. And what does that do? It cements their low rank in her eyes. Because the second you accept dismissive tone, you teach her that she can disrespect you without consequence. But here's the flip. The rare man doesn't accept clipped tone. He doesn't beg for softness. He doesn't argue. He doesn't complain. He simply pulls back, stays calm, and lets the silence do the work. Picture this. She interrupts you mid-story with a sharp, "Whatever." The average man would stumble, laugh nervously, and try to win her back with another story. The rare man, he pauses, he leans back, he gives a small knowing smile, and simply stops talking. The weight of silence fills the air. And do you know what happens? She feels it. She realizes she crossed the line because women instinctively respect men who refuse to tolerate dismissive tone. This is what I call tone recalibration. When you calmly pull back, when you stop feeding energy into clipped words, you force her to recalibrate. You're sending a clear, but silent message. If you want my attention, it requires respect. And here's the beauty. You don't need to say it out loud. Your energy communicates it for you. When you don't react emotionally, when you stay centered, she feels the gap. She feels the difference between the men who accept her sharpness and the man who won't. And in her psychology, that man instantly rises in rank. Sign number 4, her body angles away, men. If the eyes and the voice reveal the truth, the body screams it. A woman's body language is the most honest signal you'll ever receive because it bypasses words and tone altogether. Her mouth might tell you one thing, but her posture, her angles, her distance, they tell you everything. Here's the rule. When a woman is interested, her body opens, her shoulders, knees and torso face toward you. She leans in. She unconsciously mirrors your movements. Her gestures invite you closer and her energy feels accessible. It's like gravity. Her body pulls you in, but when she isn't interested, her body closes and angles away. Arms crossed, legs turned outward, shoulders slightly tilted toward the exit. She leans back instead of forward. She creates subtle barriers, holding her drink close to her chest, fiddling with jewelry, using her bag as a shield. These are not random habits. They are ancient survival behaviors. Think about it. Thousands of years ago, closing the body was protection, a shield against unwanted attention, a wall against threats. That instinct hasn't disappeared. Today, when her body angles away, it's her subconscious telling you, "I don't feel drawn in. I want distance." Let's look at some scenarios. You're at dinner at the beginning of the night. She's leaning towards you, laughing, eyes locked. But as the date progresses, you notice her chair shifting slightly. First just a few inches, then more. She crosses her arms, angles her knees toward the aisle. Instead of you, she's not saying it out loud, but her body just gave you the truth. You're losing her attention. Or imagine a group setting. You're all standing in a circle chatting. The woman you're talking to suddenly leans her weight on her friend's shoulder instead of on you. Her torso tilts away. Her feet point toward the door. It looks casual, but it's not. The body points where the mind wants to go. If she's angled away from you, it's because she's already halfway out, even in digital form. This behavior translates. You invite her out, and instead of confirming directly, her replies stall, maybe soon, we'll see. Those aren't just words. They're digital body language. She's angling away, keeping distance, avoiding direct investment. Now, here's where most men fail. They notice her pulling back, and what do? They lean in harder. They close the distance. They chase. They touch her arm more. They raise their voice. They push for attention. But the more they lean in, the more she leans out. It becomes a cycle of imbalance. Him pursuing, her retreating. So, how do you flip it? You do the opposite. You mirror her distance. If her body angles away, you don't fight it. You relax back into your own space. You lean away slightly. You give her room. You stop chasing. And that calm withdrawal changes everything. This is what I call the own tension loop. When a man refuses to close the distance and instead sits comfortably in his own presence, it forces her to feel the tension. She expects you to chase harder. She expects you to compensate. When you don't, she has two choices. Either she checks out completely, or if there's even a spark of interest, she leans back in. And here's the secret. Women respect the man who doesn't force closeness. Sign number 5. No investment in the interaction. Men, this is the strongest sign of all you can overlook. Wandering eyes. You can excuse a flat tone. You can rationalize body language. But when a woman shows you zero investment in the interaction, it's game over. Because here's the truth. Interest always shows through effort. When a woman is genuinely into you, she invests. She asks questions. She adds to the conversation. She brings energy. She offers details. She initiates plans. She puts skin in the game. But when she's not interested, her energy shrinks to the bare minimum. Short replies. No follow-up questions. No effort to keep the conversation alive. She dodges specifics, delays decisions, avoids commitment. She gives you just enough to keep you hanging, but never enough to actually move forward. That's what modern dating calls breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is when she throws you crumbs of attention. Not a meal, not even a snack. Just tiny bites to keep you chasing a LOL here. Maybe they're just enough to keep your hope alive, but never enough to nourish the connection. Let's look at what this looks like in real life. You're talking, and every answer she gives is one word. Yeah, cool, fine. No questions back, no curiosity. She's not building with you. She's tolerating you. Or you invite her out. She says, maybe I'll let you know. That's not a yes. That's not even a no. That's a stall tactic. Her way of keeping you as a backup plan while she waits for a better option. Or in texting, you send her something thoughtful. She replies an hour later with a half-dead lol. Then you see her online posting stories, liking other people's posts. She has energy for the world, but none for you. Now, here's the dangerous part. Most men ignore these red flags. They keep chasing, they double text, they try harder. They think if they just show enough persistence, she'll eventually reward them with real interest. But all they're really doing is teaching her one thing. I'll give you my energy even when you give me nothing, and the second she knows that you lose all leverage. So, how do you flip this? You use what I call the scarcity trigger loop. When you notice no investment, you cut the conversation short. You stop rewarding her lack of effort. You don't scold her. You don't complain. You don't explain. You simply withdraw your energy. For example, she replies with a one-word answer. Instead of forcing another question, you let the conversation end. She stalls on making plans. You don't chase with alternatives. You move on with your life. She breadcrumbs you with LOL replies. You don't send paragraphs in return. You stop feeding into it. And the psychology. Women are wired to value what's scarce. If she can get your attention for free, she won't value it. But if she realizes you don't give energy without investment in return, suddenly your presence becomes rare. Scarcity triggers respect. Respect triggers desire. Picture two men again. The first man keeps texting even when she gives him nothing. She replies hours later with K. He responds instantly with another question, another story, another attempt to keep her engaged. She doesn't respect him. She uses him for free attention. The second man gets the same K. He reads it, sets his phone down, and doesn't reply. He doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't reward laziness. Guess which man she eventually pings back later? The one who refused to feed her breadcrumbs. Because here's the truth. Women don't reject you by saying no. They reject you by showing no effort, no curiosity, no investment. The man who ignores these signs keeps draining himself for nothing. The man who recognizes them instantly and calmly withdraws, that man becomes rare. That man becomes respected. And respect, men, is the foundation of attraction.